It begins without warning. No dramatic moment, no official announcement. You are 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen table, watching the person who is supposed to protect you slowly come undone. Maybe it is alcohol. Maybe it is depression. Maybe it is the terrifying silence of someone who checked out long ago. And somewhere deep in your small chest, something shifts. A decision forms without words. If I don't make this okay, nothing will be okay. This is how a child stops being a child. Not in a single moment, but in a slow, quiet erasure. They stop needing things. They start noticing everything. They learn to manage moods before they even understand what moods are. They become the anchor in a house with no steady ground. They grow up overnight. And everyone around them applauds. You are so wise. You are so dependable. You handle so much. But nobody ever pauses long enough to ask the only question that matters. What did it cost you? This is the hidden wound of children who were never allowed to simply be children. And today, we are going to go deep into the psychology behind that experience, because the damage doesn't stay in childhood. It moves with you. It shapes the way you love, the way you work, the way you see yourself. And if you never name what happened, you will spend your entire adult life being a prisoner of the survival strategies that once kept you alive. Let's begin with what is actually happening in the brain when a child is forced into this role. When a child is consistently put in a position where they must regulate the emotional environment of the adults around them, psychologists call this parentification. It is the quiet theft of childhood. The child becomes the emotional manager, the family therapist, the one who keeps the peace. And this does not just cause emotional harm. It physically changes the developing brain. Because when a child lives in a state of constant alertness, scanning the room for signs of danger, managing everyone's moods to avoid an explosion, the nervous system gets rewired into something called chronic hypervigilance. You are always watching, always ready, always bracing. You learn very early that love is conditional, that safety has a price, that your job is to give comfort, not receive it. And so you shrink. Not your body, but your needs. You tuck them so far down that eventually you stop feeling them altogether. What rises in their place is a version of you that is very good at performing. You become the responsible one, the strong one, the one who never falls apart. And you wear that identity so naturally, for so long, that even you begin to believe it is who you are. But underneath it, something is still waiting. Something small and exhausted and quietly furious is asking one question. Why was I never protected? As you move through adolescence and into adulthood, the symptoms do not disappear. They just change shape. You might become fiercely self-reliant, refusing help even when you are drowning, because asking for help still feels dangerous. You might feel deeply uncomfortable during peaceful moments, as if calm is just chaos that hasn't started yet. You might tie your entire sense of worth to how much you produce, how much you give, how useful you are to others. And you might feel absolutely nothing when good things happen because joy was never safe in your house. Celebration could be interrupted at any moment. When instability is your first language, stability starts to feel like a lie. This is the psychological cost of a stolen childhood. It is not just sadness. It is a deep, complex trauma that rewires how you experience reality and most painfully how you experience yourself. And if you're watching this and something in you is recognizing yourself, I want you to stop for a second. Drop a comment below. Tell me, did you grow up too fast? Were you the one keeping everything together? Because you are not alone in this, and your story deserves to be heard. And if this video is speaking to something real inside you, please like it and subscribe because we go deep into this kind of psychology every week. Now, here is something important to understand. No child chooses this role. It is not a decision. It is a biological response to emotional danger. Children are wired to attach, and they will do absolutely anything to maintain that attachment, even if it means completely abandoning themselves. The child does not think, "I will give up my needs so my parent feels better." It happens the way breathing happens, automatically, out of pure survival. But here is the painful irony. The very strategy that kept you emotionally safe as a child becomes the chain that holds you back as an adult. So many people are walking around in high-functioning adult bodies with a deeply wounded child running the show behind the scenes. They overachieve to feel worthy. They silence themselves to avoid being too much. They pour endlessly into others while quietly starving inside, and somewhere in the back of their mind lives a fantasy that one day someone will look past the strength and the capability and the "I'm fine" and say, "I see that you are tired. Let me take care of you for once." That fantasy is not weakness. That is an unmet need. The need of a child who never got to be held. The first step toward healing is not a technique or a routine. It is simply this: witnessing. Allowing yourself to say, without minimizing, without comparing your pain to someone else's, "Something real happened to me, and it left a mark." Because until you do that, you will keep talking yourself out of your own grief with thoughts like, "It wasn't that bad, other people had it worse, I turned out fine." But fine is not the same as free. And somewhere inside you, you already know that. So what does the adult version of this child look like? They are the friend everyone calls in a crisis, but no one thinks to check on. They are the partner who overfunctions in relationships, always fixing, always managing, always quietly resentful that no one does the same for them. They are the person who apologizes for having emotions, who minimizes their own pain before anyone else has a chance to, who feels guilty for resting, who mistakes exhaustion for purpose. These are not character flaws. These are survival strategies. And the most important thing to understand about survival strategies is this: they can be unlearned. But only once you stop wearing your resilience like a badge of honor and start treating your wounds like the real injuries they are. One of the most healing questions you can ask yourself is this: what did I need as a child that I never received? Sit with it. Let the answers come. You may hear things like, "I needed to be told it was not my fault. I needed someone to ask how I was doing. I needed to play without guilt. I needed to cry without being told to stop." And as those answers surface, your work is to slowly, imperfectly begin giving those things to yourself. Not to erase the past, but to stop recreating it. This is how you stop choosing partners who need to be rescued. This is how you stop reading silence as rejection. This is how you stop running from stillness and start understanding that peace is not a threat. Carl Jung said that what you resist persists. The parts of yourself you abandon to survive will keep showing up in your relationships, your patterns, your reactions, until you turn toward them. Not to fix them, but to finally acknowledge them. Healing from this kind of wound is not linear. There will be days when you feel like that small child again, overwhelmed and invisible and convinced that your needs don't matter. And on those days, I want you to remember something. The fact that you feel it means you are thawing. What was frozen is moving again. That is not regression. That is recovery. If you grew up too fast, hear this clearly. Your strength was never the problem. The problem was that no one gave you a choice. But you have a choice now. You can choose to rest. You can choose to receive. You can choose to stop carrying everyone else's emotional weight and finally tend to your own. You can let yourself be soft in spaces that are safe. You can let people in without waiting for the moment they leave. And yes, it will feel terrifying at first because your whole system was trained to expect that closeness ends in pain. But the training was wrong, and it can be rewritten. If this video resonated with you, please like it right now and leave a comment telling me one thing you needed as a child that you never got. Reading your responses genuinely moves me, and it helps other people watching feel less alone. And if you want to keep going deeper into this kind of psychology, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. You spent years holding everything together for everyone else. You were so young, and the weight was so heavy, and no one noticed. But you are allowed to put it down now. You are allowed to be cared for. You are allowed to take up space without earning it first. You never really got a childhood, but you still have a life ahead of you. And this time, for the first time, you get to live it as yourself.